7 spine-chilling hidden camera horrors exposed. Terrifying secrets revealed from haunted locations. Emily had always taken pride in her perfect little home in Springfield, Missouri. It was cozy, with cheerful curtains and colorful decorations, a safe haven for her 6-year-old son, Jake. A single mother working hard to create a loving environment, she never thought that her biggest nightmare would come creeping in through the very walls of her sanctuary. Her nights were filled with comforting rituals, and to remember them all, she set up hidden cameras to capture the joy until the joy turned sinister. One night, flicking through the footage, she froze. In the corner of the frame, a shadow darted past, too quick to be seen clearly. At first, Emily dismissed it as a trick of light, but fear burrowed into her thoughts when she noticed Jake animatedly chatting to what appeared to be nothing at all. Her heart raced as uncertainty clawed at her insides. Was he really just talking to an imaginary friend, or was something more menacing lurking in the shadows? The following morning, a faint rustling jerked her from sleep. Just before dawn, the eerie sound echoed down the hallway, chilling her to the bone. She told herself it was just the creaks of their old house, settling down for the night, but her gut twisted with anxiety. She tried to shake it off as Jake's imaginary friend began to dominate their conversations. Glancing at the community bulletin board, she felt the creeping dread intensify. Flyers for missing children hinted at something dark. A boy who looked startlingly similar to Jake had vanished just blocks away. Was her cozy home really a safe haven, or a facade that could crumble at any moment? Her instincts screamed for her to dig deeper. As she confronted Gary, the neighborhood watch captain, he waved her away dismissively, and Emily's nerves turned into a determination stronger than any fear. What had started as playful footage became a frantic mission to uncover the truth, and she would not stop until she did. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, dread clawed at her throat as she set another camera in the living room, believing she would find proof of Jake's unseen friend. The air felt heavier, darkness pooling around her as shadows danced beyond the flickering lights. The cacophony that erupted in the dead of night had her heart pounding. Walls creaked and groaned, pushing back against an invisible weight. Jake's laughter echoed, but an unsettling sing-song quality twisted it, turning it from innocent joy into a phantom's tease. Morning couldn't come fast enough, but when it finally did, Emily reviewed the footage in shaky anticipation. What she saw drained the color from her face. A figure stood at the foot of Jake's bed, gaunt and pale, watching him as he slept. The feeling of being watched sank into her bones like ice. Had fear truly become her new reality? As the darkness of their home surrounded her, she couldn't shake the feeling that danger was not just lurking in the shadows, but wearing a friendly mask next door. The warmth of their little bubble felt like a trap, and the question remained, who could she trust when the threat melded with the very fabric of her neighborhood? Emily's hands trembled as she replayed the footage. The faint outline at the foot of Jake's bed loomed larger every second. Shadows played tricks on her mind, blurring the lines between reality and terror. What if that figure was nothing more than a figment of her imagination? Or worse, what if it wasn't he? Determined to confront her fears, she decided to broach the subject with Jake. They were sitting at the kitchen table, the sunlight barely breaking through the stagnant air. "Sweetheart," she began, forcing a smile, "who is your friend?" He looked up, his big blue eyes reflecting a mix of innocence and something else, wisdom far beyond his years. "His name is Charlie. He's nice. He plays with me every day." "Is he here now?" Emily pressed, trying to keep her tone casual. Jake shook his head, a sly grin spreading across his face. "He only comes out at night." Her stomach twisted into a knot. One glance at the camera aimed at Jake's room sent her heart racing. What was the game being played? Over the next few days, Emily's nervous energy morphed into exhaustion. The house seemed to change, shadows stretching and pulling as if eager to consume her sanity. The rustling sounds had returned, louder now, punctuated by whispers that danced just beyond her understanding. She took to staying awake, clutching a mug of lukewarm coffee while monitoring the camera's live, eyes darting to check each corner of the screen, but she never caught anything. Each second stretched into eternity, yet nothing appeared. Just shadows flickering at the edges, taunting her. Then one night, as she stared into the glowing screen, weariness washed over her. Emily's eyelids began to betray her, succumbing against her will. Sleep threatened to claim her, until suddenly, a loud crash jolted her back. Heart racing, she glanced at the cameras. A soft, buzzing sound filled the room, but nothing would prepare her for what she saw. Jake was standing in the dark hallway, the faint light from the living room casting a thin glow around him. His expression was eerily blank. She had long since stopped trusting that innocent gaze. "Jake?" she whispered, heart pounding. Without replying, he started to march toward her, his small feet barely making a sound against the hardwood floor. "Jake! Where's Charlie?" she demanded, panic rising like bile in her throat. He didn't flinch, just kept advancing until he stood right in front of her. The air turned icy, and for a moment she thought she could see wisps of shadow curling around him. "He wants to play, Mommy," he said, voice unsettlingly calm. "Come here, buddy," Emily urged as her hand instinctively reached out. A flash of movement caught her eye. Something darted behind Jake. The camera! She swiveled to check it, feeling a bead of sweat slip down her back. As she glanced back at Jake, he was grinning wide, terror threading through her as she watched shadows shift behind him, a dark silhouette with hollow eyes and a twisted grin, creeping slowly, dangerously close. In that moment, Emily realized the stakes were far higher than she'd imagined. A rush of terror washed over her as she screamed above the growing cacophony of whispers and laughter. But as the sound echoed in her mind, it was drowned out by Jake's laughter, resonating like a twisted bell tolling in the dark. How long could she hold on before darkness consumed everything she had, including Jake? She needed to find out what Charlie wanted before it was too late. Because with each second, the shadows closed in. What was the darkness preparing for? The whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a sinister wind. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, each beat thudding like a war drum, warning her of the danger that lurked just beyond her reach. Gripping the table, she fought against the memories creeping in, memories of laughter that felt too innocent, too knowing. With a sudden burst of resolve, she spun to face Jake again, trying to hold on to her son as he stood there, entranced by the shadows. "Jake!" she called out, her voice shaking. "Can you hear me? We need to go outside. Now." He blinked slowly, as if waking from a dream. "I can't leave him, Mommy. Charlie is not your friend." She shot back, desperation pouring out of her. "He's a trickster. He's lying to you." Floating in the periphery of her vision, she caught the figure behind Jake, mocking her very stance of protection. The shadows seemed to plead, tugging at the edges of her mind. Panic clawed at her throat. A primal instinct told her she had to get Jake out of there before something worse happened. "Jake, come with me!" she yelled, her heart racing as she ushered him away from the encroaching darkness. The moment her hand touched his shoulder, a shock ran through her, icy, electric, like a frigid breath on her neck. His small frame turned, and Emily gasped at the sight of Charlie standing behind him, not an indistinct shadow, but a child-shaped silhouette without features, just an endless void where eyes ought to be. It grinned, sharp edges glowing in the dim light, and her heart seized. "See, Mommy?" Jake cried. "He's right here." Emily turned, the walls closing in on her with suffocating pressure. Fear gripped her. How was she going to protect Jake from this? How had it even come to this? She knew they needed to find safety. "Charlie wants to play with you, Jake." The figure crooned, the voice a hollow echo that seemed to vibrate the air. "No! You need to listen to me!" Emily shouted, a wave of defiance swelling within her. "He's not real. He's trying to trick you." With every ounce of strength, she pulled Jake closer to her side, praying the bond of their love would break the spell that bound her son to this phantom. But then, Jake's eyes glazed over. He dropped his small hand, reaching for the void. "But I like playing, Mommy. He says we can play forever." A chilling rush of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the feeble glow of the lamp, plunging them into a tidal wave of darkness. Shadows danced wildly around them, and Emily felt a weight pressing against her chest, the kind of weight that drowned out rational thought, a trap woven from fear. "Jake, snap out of it. Come back to me, please." Silence fell heavy, broken only by the whispering chaos that filled the house, whispers that promised Jake treasures and wonders beyond imagination. With each passing moment, the line between her son and the shadow blurred, and she felt her sanity fraying. Just then, she glimpsed the video monitor flickering back to life on the table. The camera was capturing everything, the shadows swirling, Charlie pulsating with an eerie energy. Emily's breath hitched as she realized she needed to study the playback for clues. She bolted for the camera, dragging Jake behind her as terror and anticipation twisted together. In that frantic rush, she pressed a button to rewind. But what she saw froze her blood. Within the layers of distortion, fractured echoes of the past began to replay, whispers in a forgotten language, names once cherished now tainted. Names she recognized. The house shuddered, and the figure loomed closer, hunger glimmering in its void. "Jake," she whispered, terror pinching her heart. "We have to find a way to stop this." But as she turned back to her son, he stood transfixed, mouth agape, staring deep into the abyss behind her. "Mommy, he really wants to play just one game." Before she could react, a sharp jolt of energy pulsed around the room, and the laughter, oh, that laughter pierced through her soul. What dark game was unfolding? What horrors lay ahead? Each moment was a test, and every breath could bring salvation or disaster. In that instant, time stopped. Emily knew she had only one choice left. What if playing was the last thing she could ever let him do? Emily felt the air chill as she braced herself for the worst. A heartbeat echoed in her ears, growing louder, matching the frantic pitter-patter of her pulse. "No, Jake. We're leaving." She yanked on his arm, but he didn't budge. Instead, he stood, mesmerized by the void that was Charlie. "Just one game, Mommy," Jake repeated, his voice disturbingly sweet, tainted with an unnatural edge. The ghostly figure behind him intensified, its features sharpening into something grotesque. Emily's gut twisted as she clutched the camera, the only tangible proof of what was about to happen. She could feel it in the very marrow of her bones. A disaster was looming. "Please, Jake. Listen to me." Her voice trembled. "We can't trust him." The house seemed to groan in response, a living entity echoing back her fear. Shadows crept closer, and she could see the flickering form of Charlie begin to resonate with an electric hum. Emily could feel the ground beneath her tremble, as if something buried deep in the earth was awakening. "Mommy," Jake's voice sank lower, a whisper now, as if he were trying to convince himself. "What if I don't want to play anymore?" What if a surge of desperation swelled in her? "Jake, don't you remember how much you hated being scared? We can beat this together. Just trust me. We have to go." She pressed the play button on the cracked monitor, hoping against odds that some hidden truth would materialize. The screen sprung to life, showing warped images of the room, distorting time itself. Shadows flickered with casual indifference, as if they were unaware of the havoc they wrought. Emily's breath hitched at the sight of a boy playing a game, just like Jake. But the boy's face twisted in horror before bursting into laughter, a sickening, hollow sound. "No!" she shrieked, recoiling from the monitor. "Jake, please!" Jake remained frozen, eyes locked on Charlie. "Why are you scared, Mommy?" He says at once. He heard a blast of wind howled through the room, the piercing shriek of childhood laughter piercing the tangible silence that followed. Emily gazed into her son's eyes, staring at the growing distance breaking them apart. Her heart sank. She felt utterly helpless. "Just one game," Charlie echoed, the sound vibrating her bones, filling every crevice of the room with palpable dread. Emily's body tingled, suffocating in fear as she gripped her son tighter. Then, from nowhere, Charlie lunged forward, the void becoming a swirling mass of darkness. Panic surged, and she yanked Jake, pulling him back just as tendrils of shadow threatened to ensnare them. Enough! She screamed, adrenaline replacing her terror with a burning will. You're just a trick! You can't have him! As if in retaliation, the room tilted. Items rattled and furniture lifted, caught in the chaos of a brewing storm. Emily's muscles strained, her strength waning, but she couldn't let go. Mommy! I want to play! He's fun! Jake cried out, lashing out wildly. In that moment, her son wasn't just lost to the shadows, he was drawn into the thrill, a puppet dancing to the specter's tune. Jake, no! Despair pulsed through her, an electric shock igniting the air. In that instant, everything went quiet. A sudden stillness cloaked the room, the laughter fading, replaced by a deafening silence broken only by a deep breath from the entity. Step away from her, Charlie commanded, voice silkily chilling, as if resonating from all corners of the universe. Heart racing, Emily felt the weight of the world crashing down. What did it want from them? Was this just a harmless game, or something darker? Mommy! Jake's voice cracked, wavering, as his expression shifted from innocent delight to fright. I don't want to play any more, then don't! Emily shouted, her fear morphing into fury, righteous anger driving her forward. You're stronger than this, Jake! Don't let him take you! The darkness pulsed, throbbing with life. Jake blinked rapidly, confusion marring his features. For a split second, Emily saw a flicker of recognition in her son's gaze. It was all she needed. As the shadows lunged again, Emily shoved the camera towards the monitor, yelling, "Let us make our own game!" But what game could save them? What price would she have to pay? Charlie's laughter echoed, wild and sharp, filling the room as the walls shuddered again. It was a challenge now, an all-or-nothing bid for Jake's attention. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Time itself felt tethered to a razor's edge. Okay, let us play. What game were they truly entering? In the depths of doubt and darkness, the stakes were rising. Could they escape? The screech of wood scraped against wood, puncturing the heavy silence like a knife slicing through the veil of danger. The dim light flickered, and Emily instinctively pulled Jake closer, her heart hammering against her chest. Charlie loomed larger now, his laughter like shards of glass, piercing her resolve. Let us play! Jake echoed, his voice still innocent yet unnaturally serene. It was as if every syllable came from the depths of some dark pit, swallowing the remnants of her son's spirit. The air crackled and throbbed, thick with a chilling energy that seemed to reach out to them, seeking to bind them into its game. Just stay with me, Jake! She gasped, pleading. Don't let him take you. We're stronger together. The words came out shaky, but she needed him to hear the truth through the fog that Charlie cast around them. Suddenly, the shadows twisted and writhed, responding to her words like creatures awakening from slumber. The laughter morphed into howling winds, spiraling around the room as if Charlie were summoning lost souls from the depths of despair. Emily's breath quickened, she couldn't drown in this nightmare. Mommy, he is showing me fun things. Jake continued, oblivious, only the faintest hint of fear flickering across his face. She felt the bone-chilling cluster of dread wrap around her spine. The dread seeped into her limbs, freezing her in place. Would her son willingly step into the abyss? No! She shouted, reclaiming her breath. You think this game is fun? It wants to eat you, Jake. Just like it did to the boy on the screen. The monitor crackled to life, exhibiting flashes of horror. The boy twisted in pain, his mirth corrupted into manic screams. Jake recoiled, a shadow of understanding touching his youthful features. The room contorted again, the walls undulating like a wave of disbelief. Emily tightened her grip around the camera. It was a lifeline now, her only weapon against the encroaching void. She needed to prove Charlie's deceit. Look! She urged, shoving the camera toward the brief glimmer of recognition in Jake's eyes, her voice rising above the chaos. It's all a lie! You saw what it did to that boy. Mommy, I don't want to go. Jake cried out, his voice breaking. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if bristling at her truth. For a moment, she thought she had a chance. I love you, Jake, she said, hoping vulnerability was more powerful than fear, more powerful than the taunting voice that whispered promises of joy. But Charlie only grinned, a mask of malice that grew wider with every tick of the clock. You see? It keeps getting better. His voice cut through her, sharp as ice, and at that moment, Emily understood she was outnumbered. With one last heavy breath, she cried out, If you want to play, then let us play together. Show me what you can do! The walls around them pulsated violently, flickering lights casting grotesque shadows. Emily felt the world tilt again, a wave of fear waving through the space as the ground seemed to tremble beneath her feet. Jake's expression transformed, his innocence faltering under the weight of Charlie's spell. Mommy, can we trust him? The question hung heavy in the air, a needle hovering over the skin, threatening to break. No! She shouted again, her voice steeped in desperation. We can't trust anything from here. But something dark and powerful shifted within the shadows, growing, breathing, an unseen predator drawn to their trembling hearts. Before she could react, tendrils of darkness lashed out, wrapping around Jake's arm, tugging him backward. His face twisted with panic, eyes wide as they darted between his mother and the void. Mommy! He screamed. An awful howl erupted around them, drowning out their words, a cacophony of shadows entwined in a dance of despair. Emily lunged forward, pulling Jake back with every ounce of her being. The shadows recoiled, hissing, a tangible barrier snapping around them. She could feel it, raw fear pressing against her chest, the weight of it almost suffocating. But Jake, would she lose him to this nightmare? Jake, fight it! You're my son! Remember who you are! The energy around them pulsed violently, the darkness roaring in defiance. Emily felt herself being pulled into its depths but dug her heels into the ground, the image of her son's face locking her in place. As the shadows slithered closer, Charlie's laughter rang out, taunting and malicious. You think you can win this game? It's already begun. The silence shattered like glass, and the walls closed in. Emily's mind raced, searching for an escape, for answers hidden behind the chaos. What true form did this game take? And what would it cost them to survive? In that moment of uncertainty, when all seemed lost, the ground beneath them quaked, revealing a truth lurking in the darkness, one that could change everything. Could she salvage her son from the game before it claimed them both? The room pulsed, time stretching like a taut bowstring ready to snap. Emily, breathless, could barely keep her focus as shadows clawed at the edges of her vision. Each flicker of light seemed to mock her struggle, taunting her with the promise of safety that danced just out of reach. Jake! Focus on my voice! She shouted, scrambling forward as the darkness tightened its grip around her son. The tendrils slithered along his arm, cold and clammy, dragging him backward toward Charlie's waiting maw. The boy's face contorted in fear, innocence drowning in a wave of malevolence that radiated from the figure that now danced before them, a grotesque puppeteer, pulling strings of despair. Help me, Mommy! Jake cried, but his words were barely audible above the growing tempest, a cacophony of desperate wails and manic laughter that echoed through the room. Emily felt herself drawn into that noise, into a whirlwind of memories and images that bombarded her mind, flashes of her son's laughter in the park, echoes of bedtime stories read in soft, soothing tones. Please, Jake! Her voice cracked, strained through the veil of despair. You have to remember who you are. You are not playing with him. But Charlie's presence felt like a spell, winding around her son, drawing him into a deeper kind of darkness. She could feel Jake's will wavering, the innocence she clung to fading like a whisper erased by the wind. Desperation turned into a ferocity she didn't know she had. She gripped the camera tighter, an anchor in the storm. Charlie! She screamed, turning toward him, her voice laced with defiance. You're lying! This is all just a trick! The shadows flinched at her words, recoiling like burnt insects. Emily seized the moment but could hardly muster the energy to push forward. Each step sent spikes of dread through her heart. Charlie's laughter grew louder, drowning her out. Oh, sweet Emily, you still don't get it. This is the fun part. Come join us. His arms waved wide as he beckoned her in, a twisted invitation laced with mockery. The walls shuddered, as if they too were caught in the throes of his glee. Emily's breath quickened. The air thickened with dread. "Stay back!" she roared, aiming the camera at Charlie, hoping to capture the essence of this terror. She could feel the darkness pushing at her chest, threatening to squeeze the air from her lungs. Yet she had to face it, she had to confront whatever horror this was. "Don't listen to him, Jake. Please, just look at me." Her voice trembled, yet desperation cut through the swirling panic. Jake glanced up at her, those wide, innocent eyes battling against the shadows. For a heartbeat she saw him, her son, fighting, struggling against the chains that felt like they had no physical form. And then, she saw it, the flicker. The faint light hidden within Jake's eyes, flickering against the encroaching dark. It was all she needed. "You can fight him, Jake. You are stronger than this." In that instant, the ground trembled again, a crack forming beneath her feet. The walls shook violently, echoing the primal scream of a creature realizing it was losing its grip. Darkness lashed out, striking her sharp, searing pain erupting through her veins. She staggered back, but her gaze held steady on her son. Around them, shadows began to morph, twisting into forms of those who had come before, victims of this merciless game, their tortured faces pleading through the veil of charred memories. Emily's heart raced. They had to escape. The very room was a living entity, intent on devouring them both. "Jake, hold on to me. Together!" she shouted, lunging forward, pulling him free of the darkness's grasp. As her fingers connected with his, a surge of warmth flooded between them, a tether formed by the purest bond. But the shadows writhed in fury, bellowing a scream of fury. The room darkened further, a storm of despair with Charlie at its center, eyes blazing as he lost control. "What have you done?" he shrieked, rage twisting his features. Emily felt it then, a crack of energy surging from their joined hands, pushing back against the tide of malaise. The shadows recoiled, snatching at the light reluctantly. "Keep fighting, Jake," she urged, each pulse of energy building with their combined strength. But deep down, Emily could sense a cost, the price levied for this moment of clarity. The walls pulsed again as the weight of their determination hammered down upon her. They had to break free, but at what cost? Amidst the brilliance and darkness, a new horror emerged, a distorted vision of the past, unfolding like a nightmare before her eyes. What it revealed would haunt her forever. Could she protect Jake from this final revelation? Would knowing the truth shatter their chance of escape completely? And as the room echoed a warning cry, she braced herself for the worst. The flashes danced dangerously around them, each burst of light twisted into a mocking shape, echoing the chaos of their fight against Charlie's clutches. Emily felt the pull of sinister eyes watching every move. The walls whispered her fears, treacherous memories that clawed at her mind, threatening to drag her deeper into the darkness. "Mommy!" Jake's voice tore from his throat, a plea marred by the shadows that encased him. The panic in his eyes ignited a fire inside her. They had to escape. "Hold on to me, sweetheart!" Emily screamed, grasping him tighter, her heart pounding as if it would burst. With every ounce of her strength, she yanked him towards her. But just as they stumbled forward, the floor beneath them roared. The crack widened, a gaping mouth ready to swallow them whole. Charlie's laughter echoed, ringing in her ears, drowning her with despair. "Where do you think you're going?" he taunted. His voice slithered around her like smoke, thick and suffocating. "You think you can leave? You belong to the shadows now." Emily steadied herself, teeth gritted against the fear creeping along her spine. "We want to let you win." She felt Jake tugging back, fear lacing his fragile form, but she couldn't let go. They were still together, grounded in the flicker of hope that refused to be snuffed out. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of wails rippling through the room. Haunted faces emerged, twisted ghosts reaching out, their hands trembling with despair. She could see them clearly now, their empty eyes reflecting the pain of accounts long buried, souls bound by Charlie's wicked game. "No! You don't get to take him!" she shouted, adrenaline pouring through her veins as she surged forward, dragging her son with her. Together, they fought against the crushing weight of despair, straining against unseen ropes that threatened to pull them apart. Just a little closer, Charlie screeched, his voice now a hiss. The shadows churned violently, wrapping around their legs like serpents, trying to drag them back into his vortex. With each step, flashes of her child's laughter rang clear in her mind. "Remember our adventures, Jake? Remember the baseball?" The flicker in Jake's eyes brightened, just for a moment, a glimmer of recognition cutting through the dark. He nodded slowly, his hand strong in hers. Then, the energy surged again, an electric wave coursing through her, feeding on their unity. The white light wrapped around them tightly, battling the darkness. "Hold on. We're almost there," she urged, feeling her resolve weaken as the shadows retaliated, clawing at her skin as though they had become real. She could feel every scrape, the cold fingers of despair biting deep into her soul. But she wouldn't stop. "Jake, remember how we always win?" A whisper, desperate yet fierce. She fueled her words with all the love she could muster. The distortion of the past loomed large. Faces of those lost swam in the edges, threatening to tear her apart if she looked directly at them. And just as she was about to break under the pressure, the room trembled. A blast of light erupted around them, illuminating the shadows with a blinding intensity. They convulsed, twisting away as if burned. "Join me, Emily," Charlie's voice cut through the light, a sinister promise lingering in the air. "Let us make this a family reunion." "No!" she shouted, determination flooding her. They had to fight. They could not become another pair of lost souls fading into the walls of this house. As the shadows screeched and clawed to reclaim their prey, Emily pushed forward, forcing them down the narrowing path of light. But then, winter-touched hands grasped Emily's waist, pulling her back. She lost her footing. "Mommy!" Jake screeched as they slipped apart, the connection fraying. In an instant, the brightness flickered, illuminating Charlie's twisted smile, and darkness rushed to reclaim her. "Let us see how well he remembers," Charlie whispered, and the walls screamed with a fury that threatened to tear the very fabric of their world. Emily's heart sank as she felt the darkness wrap around her. Breath caught. Had she lost Jake for good? As the shadows closed in, the last flicker of hope icy against her skin, she could only wonder, would the truth she feared help them escape, or seal their fate forever? The darkness swallowed Emily, pulling her screams into its void. She fought against the grip, but it constricted, squeezing the air from her lungs. Panic surged as she spun around, searching for Jake. The crack in the floor widened, cement bricks peeling back like flesh to reveal a monstrous abyss below. "Jake!" Her voice echoed, a desperate prayer swept away by the cacophony. In moments that felt like eternity, she clawed at the shadows, feeling them slide over her, saturated with despair. The wails intensified, resonating with the very marrow of her being. What were they? Souls trapped like her? She jerked back from the thought, pressing forward, instincts screaming at her not to look, not to linger. Amid the swirling dark, she spotted a flicker of light. Jake's terrified face briefly illuminated, eyes wide, as he struggled against the shadows binding him. "Mommy, help!" He reached out, fingers grasping, desperation spilling over the edges. "Stay strong, sweetheart," Emily cried, her heart thrumming against her ribs. She lunged, pushing against the dark masses that writhed around her. Just a little further. That tiny spark in Jake's eyes was all she needed to keep fighting. She poured every ounce of love, every cherished memory of the two of them into the air. "Remember when we went to the field? You hit that home run." The shadows quivered. For a heartbeat, she felt at the connection. Suddenly, Charlie's laughter erupted all around them, filling the air with chilling confidence. "You really think memories can save you? They only feed the darkness." His words cut deep, igniting fear once more. What if he was right? The light wavered, flickering like a dying candle. "Jake!" She pressed her way through the shadowy tendrils, feelings scratching at her consciousness. Every step was a fight, the echoes of the past clawing at her resolve. Just a few more steps. "You can do this." But the shadows were relentless. They wrapped tighter, constricting her movement, pulling her away from Jake. "No!" she shouted, her voice raw with urgency. "Let me go!" she screamed. She felt a burning sensation as they tore at her skin, hoping to rob her of strength. Emily stepped forward into the light, desperate. Then suddenly, it came a surge of raw energy, startling and electric. It rushed through her, pushing the shadows back like an unseen force. Charlie's taunts faded into whispers, the darkness retreating for just a moment. Emily reached for Jake again, using the surge as her weapon. "Now, honey! Take my hand, we can break free!" Through the surge, she pulled at what was left of the bond, trying to connect their fear with hope. A blurred image danced around them, the air thickening as though time stammered in uncertainty. She couldn't discern reality anymore. Was she truly there with him, or was it merely a ploy of the darkness? Doubt thrashed in her chest. The shadows writhed, gathering themselves, attempting to reclaim their prize. A chilling wind blasted through, and Emily felt her breath hitch. She couldn't falter now. She wouldn't let it win. "Jake, remember the fun? The laughter? Focus on that." Tears streamed down her cheeks, mixing with the salt of the fear surrounding her. In a final, desperate push, she lunged toward him, the electric pull returning stronger than before. The ground shook, the flickers growing brighter as she pulled from every positive memory she could muster. "Run!" Suddenly, the shadows twisted violently, their howls turning into furious roars. "Mommy!" Jake screamed as the light began to crack, barely holding itself together. They were being pulled apart again. "No, no, no!" The wall threatened to close in, shadows coiling tighter than steel around their limbs. Without thought, Emily dove toward Jake. But the moment her fingers brushed against his, a thunderous crash erupted, and the light shattered, sending shards of brightness spiraling into the abyss. Her heart sank. In the fragile moments before the fall, fear seeped into her bones, chilling her to the core. "I want to let go!" she shouted, and it hung in the air unyielding, but then the world darkened completely. In the silence of despair, one thought screamed louder than the rest. What was Charlie hiding? What would their next desperate move unveil? Emily felt the world tilt, the shadows welcoming her into a sleepless void, and she braced for whatever lay beyond. Emily opened her eyes, not to a world of light, but to a haze of shadows, thick and suffocating. The air stung her lungs, filled with a bitter cold that gnawed at her skin. She felt weightless, detached, suspended between realms. Panic clawed at her chest. Where was Jake? Jake? The whisper barely escaped her lips, swallowed by the emptiness. She strained her ears, listening. There was nothing but silence, a heavy, oppressive silence that pressed down on her. Each heartbeat echoed loudly against the void, a reminder of her fading strength. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her attention. Out of the folds of darkness, faces emerged, twisted visages, eyes clouded with sorrow and fury. They hovered just beyond her reach, mouths moving in silent screams. Emily's heart raced, dread pooling in her stomach. Were these the souls trapped by Charlie, mere echoes of lost humanity? "Get back!" she shouted, shaking her head violently. Her panic ignited a spark of defiance, igniting her will to fight. The figures recoiled, leaving only darkness where they had been. Just then, a familiar voice cut through the haze. "Mommy!" Jake's voice. Relief surged through her, but it was quickly dampened as she recognized the fear lacing it. "Jake! Where are you?" "Here. I'm scared." His voice sounded faint, drifting like a ghost through the air. Emily spun, searching desperately through the consuming dark. She forced herself to breathe, feeling tears prick at her eyes again. There had to be a way back. "Keep talking, sweetheart. Give me a sign," she urged, her own voice trembling. "I see shadows, they're trying to take me," he whimpered, and every inch of Emily felt like it was unspooling. "Don't let them. Just hold on to my voice." A rush of energy surged through her again, a beacon in the suffocating void. She could feel its warmth, flickers of hope igniting as she pushed against the despair weighing her down. She focused on Jake, On the promise of reuniting with his small, warm body, where safety lived, she fought to make sense of her surroundings, but the darkness shifted, morphed, twisting into a whirlpool that threatened to pull her under. Then she saw him, Jake, floating in a mass of shadows, terrified. "Mommy!" he cried again, crystalline in its desperation. "Grab my hand, Jake! Just reach for me!" But before he could respond, an anguished wail emerged from the dark. The shadows lashed out, racing toward him. Emily felt a terror far deeper than the abyss itself, a primal fear that close bodies could be ripped apart forever. "No!" she screamed. In that instant, an instinctual rage ignited within her, propelling her forward despite the thick shadows that tugged insistently. With every ounce of fear summoned into strength, she lunged, aching muscles straining against the weight. Shaking a fist, she shouted into the darkness, "This ends now." The profound stillness shattered. A fierce wind ripped through, carrying the cries of the trapped souls with it, howling with anger and despair. The shadows recoiled, but they were relentless, fighting to retain possession. In a heartbeat, Emily felt herself pulled toward Jake. The warmth on her fingertips ignited her spirit. She could almost feel the pressure of his tiny hand against her. She couldn't falter now. But just as she was about to grasp it, a flash of light cut through, brighter than the sun, and she shielded her eyes. It engulfed everything. Pain seared through her body, and she screamed. As the brightness faded, she landed with a thud on an old wooden floor, shadows retreating like a tide. She gasped for air, regaining her bearings, but the room she found herself in was menacingly familiar. Charlie's old house, where it all began. "Jake?" she shouted, voice trembling with dread, but the house was silent, unease creeping into her bones. She could feel a chill wrap around her heart. Was this victory or merely the dawn of a new horror? A low, mocking laugh echoed through the dark corners of the room. "Did you really think you could escape me, Emily? The game has only just begun." Her pulse thundered in her ears. What was Charlie plotting now? The darkness swirled closer, a whispering storm. The shadows were far from finished. What awaited her now? Emily's mind raced, a chaotic whirlwind of emotions crashing in on her as she stood in the dim room. The familiar smell of old wood and dust clung to the air, almost suffocating her. Had she made it back? Was Jake still trapped in Charlie's twisted game? Panic clawed at her throat as she pushed her fear aside, focusing on the pulse of love in her heart that anchored her. "Jake!" she called again, her voice echoing in the dark. Cautiously, she stepped forward, eyes darting, listening for any signs of her son. The weight of the silence pressed down on her, but she wouldn't give in. She found herself at the foot of the staircase leading to the second floor where the cameras had captured so many horrors. Summoning her strength, she climbed, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the suffocating quiet. "Jake!" she pleaded, desperation coursing through her. "I'm coming for you." The hallway at the top was cloaked in shadows, tangled and thick as if alive. As she moved deeper, she spotted flickering lights spilling from beneath the door at the end. Hope ignited her spirit, driving her to rush forward. She threw the door open and gasped. Inside, Jake was sitting on the floor, surrounded by shards of light emanating from the monitor, where Charlie's silhouette danced malevolently. The figure flickered in and out of focus, grinning wide, a glint of malicious joy glimmering in its hollow eyes. "Mommy!" Jake cried, his small frame trembling. "I can't move!" He was ensnared in crackling light, eyes wide with fear. The shadows lashed around him, twisting, reaching for Emily. The air thickened, a churning mix of dread and despair. "Jake!" She reached out, heart hammering. "I'm here! Just hold on!" But Charlie's laughter rang out, echoing through the room, haunting and gloating. "This is where it all ends, Emily! You think you can save him? He belongs to the game now." "No!" Emily shouted, the defiance bubbling up from within. She was done letting fear control her. "He is not yours. You are just a trickster, a coward hiding in the dark." The lights flickered wildly, but she saw uncertainty ripple across Charlie's face, a momentary falter. Emboldened, she continued, Jake is stronger than you, and we are stronger together. Remember all the fun we had, buddy? Our adventures? The stories? Focus on those. Jake blinked, confusion knitting his brow. In that instant, she saw his essence breaking through the shadow facade. Mommy, the shadows, they want to take me, I know, sweetheart, but you can fight. You have to fight, she urged, determination thickening her voice. Suddenly, a surge of memories flooded in flashes of days spent at parks, running in the summer sun, laughter that echoed pure joy. Emily poured her heart into her words, unleashing everything she held dear, feeding the bond with every cherished moment. The shadows shrieked, flickering as if torn between light and dark. No! You can't! Charlie howled, face twisting in rage. Jake! She yelled, desperation saturating her tone. Take my hand! You have to trust me! For a moment, Jake hesitated, fear mixing with the thrill of the shadows swarming around him. But Mommy, Charlie said I can have fun forever. It's a lie! She roared, hoping against hope that her voice would break through. Fun doesn't come from shadows, sweetheart. It comes from love, from us. Fight. Don't let him take you. A flicker of recognition sparked in her son's eyes. In that beat of silence, Charlie lunged forward, tendrils of darkness swirling around him like vipers. But Emily was ready. Fueled by love and desperation, she spread her arms wide, ready to stand firm. Let go of him. You will not win this. She felt the power coursing through her, building, gathering around her like an aura, pushing against the shadows. A light erupted within, fierce and radiant. Let him go. In a brilliant flash, Jake's eyes sparked back to life, a wave of energy surging through the room. Emily dove forward, feeling every inch of the darkness recoil from the light radiating from them both. The void howled in anguish, writhing as if it could feel its grip breaking. Mommy! Jake cried, reaching out as the shadows extended toward him, shrieking in agony. Now! Grab my hand! Jake's small fingers clasped hers tightly. Emily pulled him close, squeezing, pouring all the warmth, courage, and love she had into that connection. In one final push, Emily pulled Jake towards the light. The walls screamed, Charles' figure twisting into an unrecognizable form. No! He bellowed, his voice breaking with rage. You can't escape. But together they surged forward, the darkness fraying and splintering around them as they burst into the light. Time felt suspended, the screams mixing into a cacophony that faded into the unrelenting brightness. Shouts echoed, faces melted into beams of light, and finally, they were free. As the remnants of Charlie's malevolent laughter faded away, Emily felt her feet touch solid ground. She blinked, dazed but alive, and looked down to see Jake clinging to her side, wide-eyed and innocent once more. Mommy, we won! He whispered, a small smile breaking across his face. They won't take you again, Jake? Never again, she breathed, pulling him into a tight embrace, tears of relief pouring down her face. Around them, shadows began to fade, a sense of peace washing over the room. Emily knew the battle had been won, but the memories would linger. They stepped outside, sunlight pouring over them, illuminating their path ahead, a path filled with laughter, safety, and love. Together, hand in hand, they walked away from the darkness, ready to create new adventures, stronger than ever, free from the chains of fear. Let us go play outside. Jake squealed, laughter bubbling over. Emily laughed, the sound lifting into the air. Absolutely, sweetheart. Let us enjoy every bit of this moment. And as they strolled into the sunshine, a warmth enveloping their hearts, she realized they had not just survived, they had stepped into a world that was finally their own again. Don't forget, everyone, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your reactions and theories are crucial. Flood the comments section about how you felt about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything.